They hurt me. They tortured my soul. They twisted and ruined all that I had to love. They caused me pain, cast me out, treated me like a freak. But now they will be the ones that hurt. They will be the ones in pain. And when my shadow blocks out the light, they will gaze upon my figure and know what true fear is. They will call to me. They will ask for mercy. But I will give them none. Instead, Hello Internet, how's it going? It's me, Ricardo, the Cynical Critic. And you know what? Elfen lied, like its name, is kind of weird. And if any of you are wondering, what is Elfen Lied? No, it has nothing to do with elves and nothing to do with not telling the truth. Technically, the name is German or Dutch for Song of the Elves. Which, coming to think about it, is sort of a good name for it, as it does have a decent song, and the main character kind of looks like an elf. But I get ahead of myself. Elfen Lied is an anime that was released in 2004 for Japan, and of course for us Americans, we had to wait until 2007 to see it. It's based off the manga of the same name, but unlike the manga, which had, I believe, about 107 chapters created for it, Elfen Lied only had about 13 episodes. However, as for me, I didn't really watch it until around like 2012, 2013, and that was mainly because I wasn't really interested in watching these kind of shows before, and kinda still ain't. However, I found out about it through those top 10 anime lists of such and such characters or such and such shows and such. This one was top 10 bloodiest animes. To be honest, I think there are animes out there that are a lot more bloody. This has just got a lot of red splatter everywhere to make it look like it's really dark when, let's be honest, most of you pretty much get this much blood during your average GTA session. But this being back in the good old days, I was able to look it up and watch the entire season on YouTube. For those who don't know and haven't watched the show, the reason I'm pausing is because, yes, that was quite an achievement. And it's not because of YouTube's usual problem where they shut down the channel because they showed 3 milliseconds of the show without paying royalties. It was actually because of the fact that this show's kind of, well, I wouldn't say it's like really raunchy, but definitely higher than a PG-13. There's a lot of nudity is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of nudity in this show for some reason. And some of the nudity is on characters that should never be nude in any way, shape, or form. But unlike you guys, that's not what intrigued me. What intrigued me was the fact that it sort of was getting some mixed signals sent all over the place. Some people were saying it was really good, some people were saying it was really bad, others were saying that they couldn't make up their minds about it. So let's go over a general idea of the summary of this show. Now, with Elfen Lied, we start out in medias res. That means, yes, in the middle of some action going on, and holy cow, this is like a really strong start off. 'Cause shit's going down, my friends! Definitely Funimation subscribers after their little, forced non-cancellation incident. But anyways, we started with our main character, Lucy, who just so happens to be a pink-haired psychopath. Because everyone with pink hair is a psychopath. Just look at the feminists. She goes on a rampage because I guess it's that time of the month, but during that she gets a knock on the head, which I guess in this kind of situation means that she gets all her memories taken away and a new personality to boot. And I'm just going to say, this new personality makes me uncomfortable. Not the fact that she's a hot girl that has the mental capacity of a 3-year-old, but the fact that that 3-year-old seems to be mentally retarded. Because the only word she apparently knows is new. And every time she says it, I get a weird, cringy feeling knowing that somebody out there is getting turned on by it. You freaks. But anyway, she comes across two characters who just so happened, well, to have some weird connection to her, which is Koda and Yuka. And I'm just going to bring up the Alabama in the room. I don't know if it was like a mistranslation or this is just something that the Japanese is into, but Koda and Yuka are cousins. Now, to be honest, that can be a mistranslation. It's not like that happens all the time in manga and anime. But we also have a cultural difference here, meaning that we don't know exactly what kind of cousins they are. Are they cousins by law, or are they cousins so-and-so removed? We don't know. We just know that they haven't seen each other for a very long time, which means either one is very possible. And the reason I'm putting so much emphasis on this is because they are, well, the romantic couple of this show. But believe it or not, things only get weirder as the show goes on. Because it turns out that though Lucy looks human, she's technically not a human. In fact, she's an entirely different species known as the Diclonus. Basically, the pink-haired psychos that grow horns out of their head. Unless you're a dude, in which case that you were just bald. I don't know why Mother Nature hates men, but for some reason we're the ones that get bald all the time. Don't look at it. But Lucy's not alone. There are other Diclonies out there, and in fact, two of them come looking for Lucy. And that's where the fun begins, because one of them has daddy issues, and the other one has serious daddy issues. But tracking Lucy turns out to be a little difficult because of the fact that Lucy keeps flittering between her new personality and her older self. Kinda when the plot demands it. Which is kind of funny that I bring up the plot, because there's practically none of it in this show. I'm not even joking, they kind of build something up, and then just forget about it during the last part of the episodes. And that may be because of the fact that the bad guy is your basic evil corporation that wants to rule the world. Which is kind of weird, because that would mean that they are in control and thus responsible, and have to deal with all those crybabies out there that keep complaining that they want something. I mean, whatever happened to the villain that just wants a bunch of money, a hot chick, and an island to live by themselves on? Where's my villain? But again, we really don't have to worry about them because they sort of pop in out of nowhere and then just fade away as we sort of focus on our main characters. But even that is not handled that well, as they're just your basic stereotypes, and all the situations that they get into are so forced, it's like Jedis are in the next room mind-tricking the scriptwriter. And let's not even get into that whole love triangle that I brought up, because holy crap! The sensual tension in this show is so thick you couldn't even cut it with a chainsaw! Which brings me up to the fact that, yes, Lucy is sort of in love with Koda, even though he technically isn't in love with her. But, well, it doesn't really go anywhere. And she just spends the entire show trying to tell him something before eventually we get a high-octane battle. She eventually tells him, and then the show just ends. To say the least, it is kind of anticlimactic. So much plot problems, so many character issues, so much wrong with this show. It's kind of surprising that I actually like it. Yes, if somebody was theoretically pointing a gun to my head, and I had to say it, this show would technically be on my favorite anime list. It would be nowhere near my top 20 shows of all time, but as an anime, it's very intriguing. You see, it's not because of the fact that it does some things right, it's the fact that when it gets something right, it does it right. And one of the things that it does right is the fact that it knows that its plot is not really going to be all that great. So instead of focusing on it, it focuses on the characters, or more specifically, on how the characters are forced to evolve and grow due to certain circumstances that they have to deal with. And there's quite a few of them that are very good. And one of the instances they do right is that whole love triangle, as while it is very stereotypical, one of the characters isn't really trying to fall in love with the other person. They want to, but they know they can't. So instead, they have to let them go. Another thing that they do right is, this show is one of those shows that is technically what you would call a harem show. That is to say that there's usually one guy that is surrounded by a bunch of girls. And in this case, some of them are literally girls. As in, little girls. You're fucking creepy, Japan! But again, it knows that it's going to be stupid, so it focuses on the characters and making this harem feel more like a ragtag family group. And another interesting thing that it does right here is that it takes certain risks that other anime shows do take. I mean, they try to be all hoity-toity, pointy, but here it does that without really telling you it. Elfen Lied here does something different, as it implies what's going on, but almost never really gets into it. And one of the great scenes in which something is implied is a scene that is horrible to watch because you know that something was happening, but it never shows you that thing happening like other anime shows would show that it was happening, but it never shows you that. It merely implies it. And thus, it's like one of those great horror games. It allows you to fill in the gaps, allows you to think what might have actually happened, and thus making it far more terrifying. And to emphasize some of these moments, if you were to ask any weeb that knows about anime and then bring up a particular anime, I'm pretty darn sure they could start humming the theme song right off the bat. But when it came to Elfen Lied, it knew that it had a good theme song and decided to use it properly. One of the things that it uses it properly in is actually its intro. If you were to watch Elfen Lied's intro, not only could you figure out the bare basics of the emotions that are going to go on in the show, but you can figure out what our main character, Lucy, is feeling throughout the show. It's really good. And when we get to certain emotional moments in the show, it solely lets on with that theme song. Of course it does have dialogue, but luckily the dialogue is not in English, so I really don't understand it, and thus I don't have to focus on it while the characters are talking. But again, kind of pointed because the show's name does mean Song of the Elves, and, well, as you might think, the Song of the Elves would be a somber note, and it certainly hits it. In fact, one of the moments that it hits it very, very hard, and almost gets me to bring to tears every single time, has a moment to do with a particular father and a particular daughter. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but anybody who knows which part I'm talking about, it takes what was about to be just a crazy scene about a character literally going all psychopathically murderous, and then shows the man behind the monster. Or in this case, it would be the child behind the monster. And that's sort of an underlying theme that I really like about this show, is that it shows what happens to certain children if they don't have a parent in their life. Specifically in this case, have a proper father. Take that, feminists! And to be honest, it does it really well. It doesn't really mock on anything or try to be some poignant message. It just, again, throws the characters into a situation and lets them suffer through it while it watches. It's almost as sadistic as me. And the ending is kind of good too, as even though it doesn't wrap everything up in a nice, neat bow, it again sort of leaves it up to you to figure out what might have happened next. Because again, yes, the ending is sort of anticlimactic and it just sort of ends. And to be honest, I am with those people out there wishing that this show is remade in its entirety, remade and completed to its end, and again, focusing solely on the characters and how they have to deal with, well, the hand that life has dealt them. But as much as I would like to praise it, Elfen Lied still does have a lot of major problems. Sadly, a lot of them seem like to be the usual problems of anime, where this is what's popular right now, so we have to have it in our show, despite the fact that it's not really that great, and it kind of ruins our show's theme, and doesn't really fit well with what we're trying to put out. But we gotta have it because it's popular. But it seems like the director knew that was going to happen and decided to twist things here and there in order to get us back on the whole general theme of, well, life pretty much sucking. You might see boobies, but guess what? Occasionally it's used to dehumanize certain characters or emphasize the wrongness of certain scenes. There's a lot of girls, but like the boys, they're all damaged and they're just trying to make some form of life in the chaos that they've been left in. There's blood and gore galore, but again, it not even tries to make it look like it's something to be proud of. Instead, it's something to be shunned, something awful, something painful to watch. It's one of those weird shows that fall directly on a 3-star rating. Not good enough to be great, but not bad enough to be unwatchable. It's literally one of those shows in which you walk away not sure if you really liked it or not, but you know that it's going to get you to think, and you know it's going to get you to talk, and you're going to want to think and talk about it long after you're finished watching it. But anyways, guys, that was my first impression of Elfen Lied. What was your first impression? Please write a comment in the section below. I would really like to find out. And since we're talking about shows with daddy issues, which one should I do next? Dead Man Wonderland or Future Diaries? Anyways, guys, I'm Ricardo, the Cynical Critic. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time on my first impressions. Toodles!
This is my fort!